88% of organizations now use AI. 6% are getting financial impact from it. That second number, 6, is from McKinsey's own 2025 report, and the advice they give the other 94% is what stranded them in the first place. There's a Shakespeare line you've heard the comforting half of. There's a tide in the affairs of men. Most people stop there. The next part is the half that should keep executives up at night. Which, taken at the flood, leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries. The tide doesn't lift everyone. It lifts the ones ready to take it. The rest get stranded. That's what's happening with AI right now. And in the next 7 minutes, I want to show you why most organizations are stranded in that gap, and why the playbook they're being sold is the reason. The version of this metaphor most leaders carry around is, a rising tide lifts all boats. It implies the benefit is automatic. You buy the tools, you enable the licenses, the water does the work. That's the comforting half. It's also wrong in a specific way. Tides don't lift boats that aren't seaworthy. They expose them. A boat with holes in the hull doesn't rise with the water. It fills up and goes down faster. And here's the part that matters for executives. Standing still while the tide rises isn't neutral. Your competitors' boats are getting ready. The water is going up either way. So the real question isn't whether the tide is real, it is. Models keep getting better, capability keeps compounding. The real question is whether your vessel can take it. I've been working inside enterprise AI adoption for the last few years in a regulated industry where the stakes of getting it wrong are higher and the tolerance for ambiguity is lower. From that vantage point, vessels become unseaworthy in 4 predictable ways. Governance. Nobody will sign the manifest. Culture. The crew is rewarded for finding flaws, never for committing. Technical. The equipment was bought because competitors bought it. Workflow. The crew had tools but doesn't know how to use them inside the actual work. You probably recognize at least one of these in your own organization. Most executives can name which one. The discipline isn't fixing all 4. It's identifying which one is the binding constraint right now and addressing it with enough clarity to create momentum. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Most organizations aren't even diagnosing the vessel. They're producing theater. Theater is what organizations produce when committing carries personal risk and avoiding carries none. Counting licenses as adoption, lunch and learns as capability building, pilots that never end, AI councils that produce frameworks instead of decisions. The executives who attend the conference post takeaways and goes back to letting procurement drive the strategy. Vendor demos confused with deployed value. Each of these has the appearance of action while leaving the vessel exactly as unprepared as before. And here's where I have to say something uncomfortable about the firms producing the playbook executives are following. 88% of organizations use AI in at least one function. Only 6% are getting measurable profit impact. Only 38% have scaled beyond pilots. McKinsey's 2025 report opens with the celebration. 88% adoption, mainstream complete. It closes with the admission buried in the methodology. Only 6% are getting financial impact. The gap between those two numbers is the entire story. And their recommendation to the 94% who aren't capturing value: commit harder to the same playbook, pursue transformation innovation, redesign workflows, scale faster, invest more. This is what the firm selling transformation engagement describes when asked why most transformation engagements aren't working. It is not a conspiracy theory, it's how consulting business models work. The report describing the changes are produced by the firm selling the change. Executives who'd never accept that level of self-interest from a software vendor accept it without question from a McKinsey deck. Read their data, don't read their recommendations. The honest reading of McKinsey's own data, which they publish themselves, is that workflow redesign is the single biggest predictor of AI value capture. That's their finding, not mine. That isn't licensing, that isn't tooling, that isn't a training program. That's operational rewiring. A vessel that can take the tide needs 2 things, and you need both. The hull, operational readiness, governance that moves at the speed of capability change, processes designed to absorb AI rather than just tolerate it. The crew, it's capable people, practitioners who can decompose their own work, evaluate AI output with judgment, and direct capability towards outcomes rather than activities. The hull without crew is infrastructure waiting for capability nobody can direct. The crew without a hull is capable individuals trapped in unready organizations. Most programs invest in one and call it complete. That's why the failure is 94%. For most of the last 3 years, avoidance was the rational executive position. The cost of being wrong about a major AI commitment was higher than the cost of being late. Boards weren't asking pointed questions. Peer benchmarking didn't exist. Waiting was safe. That has changed. The cost of being late has become measurable. McKinsey's own report turns the visibility up further. Every executive whose firm is in the 94% now has a number describing their position that their board has access to. The executive who commits to operational readiness now is making the lower risk bet. The one waiting for clarity is making the bet that used to be safe and no longer is. Most haven't repriced. If this is the kind of thinking you want more of, I write a longer version of this argument every week at Andrew Lewis Was Here on Substack. There's a link in the description. The next video goes deeper on what operational readiness actually looks like in a regulated industry, when you can't just deploy and learn. I'll see you there.